All right, it's been a while since we recorded. When did we last record? Was it like after the Magic game?
Yes, it was before the Pelicans game.
Before the Pelicans game? Before the Warriors finally got off the schneid and beat the Sacramento Kings, though they had to come back. Like it was Steph putting the team on his back to make sure that they won that game. It was not looking good going into the end of that fourth quarter, but Steph made sure that they won. And I don't know. I feel like he's going to have to do that a lot this year with how they're playing. Like it's not what you're used to seeing when it comes to the Warriors and how they usually handle business.
Yeah, no, it's not. And I'm sure we're going to talk about how we think they could potentially fix that.
All of the things we're going to talk about.
Yep.
Okay, so first thing, there was a change in the rotation, and I think that was a detriment to Mr. James Wiseman. Kuminga as well, it seems to be playing more than he was. I don't know what it means for Moody because I feel like Moody should be playing like 25 minutes. Like he should be like the second highest bench guy after Poole, but that has not happened. And a lot of Anthony Lamb. I imagine Ty Jerome's minutes go down the second DiVincenzo comes back. But what do you think about the rotation after Steve Kerr said that they had to make some changes?
I thought it was so bad. So I only got to see, I still haven't watched it yet, the first half of the Pelicans game. So
Yeah.
apparently in the second half, like Anthony Lamb has like 5 3-pointers. So I
Yeah.
guess that's why he's getting run. But like the point, like him being there over all the guys that like have long-term investment, like I just didn't make sense to me. I knew like it was almost like a must-win game, which is awful considering they're only in their ninth win or their ninth game. But like, yeah, Anthony Lamb has no. I don't know. He's no offense, but he's nothing out. In the years to come. Whereas,
Okay. I will say, I see where you're getting at. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say he's not going to be a player because this could be like he's showing other teams, right? He's just not going to be a guy on this team, which
exactly.
is weird. Like he's showing other teams, like, look at how well I played in this Warriors offense. Look, Steve Kerr was putting me in before he was putting in these diamonds that he has on the bench. But you're right in that it doesn't help them in any way this year outside of maybe chasing a win or two, just because for whatever reason Anthony Lamb is a little bit more functional in the offense right now than say a Kuminga. But that doesn't really answer my question though about Moody. Like, why do you think Moody is still not playing?
That I have no idea why. Like, I mean, watching him on the court, I don't think he's doing anything insanely wrong to warrant no playing time. So no, I'm as puzzled on that one as you are. Because I mean, we looked at like the rotation and the depth that they had going into the season, and it seemed like Kuminga would be the odd man out.
Yeah,
just by positional depth.
Positional, yeah.
And I mean, Kuminga kind of was after he didn't get any run in that second half. Wiseman doesn't play. JaMychal Green doesn't even play. So, I mean, I think that, obviously once DiVincenzo comes back, Ty Jerome's just getting DMPs most likely. They even said it on plus minus today, but I think that's something we knew. Ty Jerome was essentially replacing DiVincenzo's playmaking aspect. That's what DiVincenzo is, kind of like the second point guard. So Poole can cook, and that's why Ty Jerome was getting run. But yeah, no, the Moody thing, like he's supposed to just fit right in. I'm not entirely sure why he's not getting the run.
So my friend Mark Nobita chimed in to say that he really misses GP. We all miss GP, man. But has GP even started playing yet?
No.
Has he's still hurt, right?
Otto Porter Jr. finally started playing.
I saw Raptors. He got in the other day.
Yeah, no GP2 though. And the Trailblazers are rolling.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting fit for him to kind of get into the mix because they have wings. They have young wings who are playing pretty well. So we'll see. I mean, GP2 should be able to fit any sort of team when you give him the minutes because he's your best defensive your best defensive guard. So we'll bring up GP2 in a minute, Mark, because Tim Kawakami on today's plus minus, like Brian said, he had an interesting trade that we'll bring up in a second here when we talk a little bit more about what's going on with the youngsters here. Okay, so I thought it was frustrating to see less. So obviously the whole Wiseman thing sucks, right? He's I would like to see him play through it. I know a lot of he's become a target for this fan base. The fans usually will latch on to one or two players if the Warriors aren't playing well and just go to town, and that has been James Wiseman. Honestly, I think he's playing better than Kuminga. That's not saying a lot, but Kuminga gets a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because he is only in his second year. James is in his third year. Also, he plays a wing, so he can kind of make these mistakes that maybe they're not as big of a deal. They're not as big of a bullseye as when Wiseman fumbles the ball in the paint, or
Misses a
he doesn't
rebound,
box
and
out and he
yeah,
misses a rebound. And those moments have happened when the Warriors were not playing well, and you could see Steph frustrated. You could see Draymond frustrated. So I think Wiseman's getting a little bit of the short shrift, but I get it. He was the number 2 pick in the draft. He is supposed to fit in. He is supposed to do all of the stuff to make sure that he's a good player. That it just hasn't happened for him yet, and he's still coming off of the meniscus injury from last year. So I don't know how much of that has to do with it. But Kuminga has not, like last year when they would throw Kuminga in, and like he just would bring this crazy athleticism to this older team, and you're like, wow, Kuminga, I want to see him play more. And he doesn't have that so far, and some of it may just be the rotations and how they're working. But what do you like? Do you have a solution for, like, if Steve Kerr called you up and was like, how would you change this rotation? How would you make sure that the right guys are getting on the court and
mm-hmm.
that we're not getting blown out? Because the Warriors' first team is the best first team in the league when it comes to plus minus, and their second team is like the worst. I think
Yeah,
it's like some
yeah.
crazy split like that. So what would you do?
So for right now, a little side tangent, but I feel like it's relevant. I feel like sports fans, especially, maybe not especially Warriors fans, it's just like kind of the realm of social media that I'm in is Warriors content. But I feel like they're very like their memory span. A lot of sports fans' memory span is like from today to like the past few games.
Mhm.
There's people on Twitter saying Wiseman hasn't shown us anything. Wiseman hasn't done this and that. Wiseman hasn't done this. Wiseman in the summer league showed flashes, and Wiseman in the preseason had some really good games too that I feel like people just genuinely forget. And I responded to a tweet that's already labeling him like the Hasheem the Beat, the Anthony Bennett's, and I'm like, that's just too soon. He showed something previously, not even too long ago, but when the season starts, it's that's what we're all remembering, I guess. But I texted you and I was saying that when Jordan Poole went down to the G League,
Mhm.
I don't think they sent him down to the G League to be like, hey, go work on your shooting, go work on your playmaking. Like that's kind of implied, but I think they mainly sent him down to go get his confidence back. Like, go
Mhm.
be Jordan Poole, go be who you thought you were going to be in the G League. Competition's less. And just to feel like, see the stats that you wanted to see and see the shots go in that you want to see go in, like just get that confidence back. I feel like Wiseman needs that right now because I think, we've talked about it. They talked about it in Warriors Plus Minus. They're putting him into the JaVale McGee role. And we thought it would be simple, a number 2 pick, a lot of potential, getting to play with a championship team, just play a simplified role.
Mhm.
And it's not working. And I just think that, he needs to go down there to build back up the confidence and be like, hey, I was James Wiseman. You don't need to go down there and rim run and try to catch lobs and play defense. Do that, but like, go down there to rebuild your confidence and remember, who you were prior to this slump. And I think that the Warriors do it better than most other teams when it's like going down to the G League, almost like, how Steph was okay with coming off the bench that first game against the Nuggets. Like, the uh, the notion of coming off the bench when you're that guy, the notion of going back to the G League in your third year, I feel like the Warriors are pretty good at saying it's not that big of a deal. Just go do it and you'll be fine. So that's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do, it would probably be to, I've said that Kuminga in this pod, I think the last pod we did, I said that Kuminga and Jermichael Green can't play together unless one of them's the small ball 5. And I think that that's what would what my move would be for that second unit. If you're just not including starters, just second unit would be DiVincenzo, Poole, Moody, Kuminga, JaMychal Green. That would be what I would think.
I have an idea.
Let's hear it.
And I wonder if, I'm sure Kerr has thought about doing this. I would go back to Steph's rotation where he plays the entire first quarter.
That's kind of what he's doing, though. That he just gets pulled out with a minute left.
But you still only want him to play 36-ish minutes, right?
Yeah.
So he plays the entire first quarter. Draymond plays about between 6 to 8 minutes of that first quarter. Draymond then starts the second quarter with and Poole's going to be in, and maybe you can even have Klay back in. It's going to be, you're going to have a couple of the second team in that lineup. But I would pair Draymond or Steph in every single lineup that they have.
Yeah.
Now, that may be a little harder when it becomes more situational, and when teams are like, okay, if we know, Draymond and Poole without Steph, then maybe we make this adjustment, and then the Warriors maybe have to adjust. But that allows the Warriors to have a vet, have a smart playmaker, have a smart decision maker on the court at all times. Now, the third part of this, or I guess the second part technically, Iguodala. We have yet to see Andre Iguodala play basketball. I think if there are moments in which Dre or Steph cannot be on the court, those are the moments that Iguodala has to be on the court, because he's another vet, smart decision maker, calms the team down. There's less of a anxiousness when he's on the court. So one of those three players I think needs to be on the court at all times.
I hate to burst your bubble here, but I actually think I heard a report that the Warriors are more focused on getting Iguodala ready for the second half of the season. So we might not even see him like anytime soon.
So the report that we saw from Slater was that he was close. I don't know what close means, but this was a few days ago. So okay. I don't know. Maybe something has changed since then, and they're doing what you said. So if, like, let's say they make the first sub, which is usually Poole for Klay, and that comes around the 6-minute mark, and then your second sub would be JaMychal for Dre. So maybe that stretches Looney a little bit. And then you take Looney out, and like you said, JaMychal goes to small ball 5 for a few minutes until Draymond comes in at the start of the second quarter. So my goal would be, if we're going to play these young guys, they need to at least play with one of your two best players at all times, because you're having the young guys play with the young guys. So it's, if Kuminga and Moody and Poole are all making mistakes right now, playing them together is not working, because there's just going to be more mistakes. So you kind of bring in that veteran, you bring in the star power, the leadership, and you try and it's almost like you're making those guys play better by having that leadership on the court and having that leadership hold them responsible for making plays. Like, Draymond and Andre, when they're off the court, they're constantly coaching these guys, right? So that's going to happen on the court as well. But that would be my solution to this problem right now. Is I think one of those two guys needs to be on the court. Now, the negative is that it forces them to not be together as much as they are, which may be a problem. Maybe Steph and JaMychal together playing the Draymond role a little bit. Maybe that helps him, because he hasn't been great either. Maybe Kuminga and Steph together, because Steph can be a little bit more creative with the passes, like he was trying to be with Wiseman, and then Wiseman just can't finish some of this stuff. So that would be my solution. My question, though, because the name that I didn't mention is Klay. Klay has been. I don't want to say he's been the worst player on the team. That's not the case, but he's been bad. And I think most people are kind of looking at the offensive stuff, and yeah, like he takes a lot of irresponsible shots. When he is Game 6 Klay, or when he is 30 points in a quarter Klay, you can live with those shots because he's going to make some of them, but he's not making any of them. He's the only shots that I really see him making are wide open threes. And so there's got to be a little bit of responsibility there for him to know, okay, I'm not cooking right now. Like I have to take smart shots. And if the shot isn't there, rather than force it, we got to move the ball, because that's what's happening. Is he is now becoming a black hole. The ball stops when it gets to him. And that's not the way that the offense necessarily works. But, and I'll give you a chance to talk about this in a second. Even worse is the defense. He is someone that the Warriors have relied upon year after year after year. And I don't know how closely you were watching that Sacramento game.
Yeah, I know what you're about to say.
They were they were switching from Steph to Klay late in that game. Have we ever seen that in our lifetime?
No.
Watching what I've never seen anybody go, I got Steph, I want to switch on to Klay. And that's what they were doing at the end of that game. And they were beating him. Malik Monk right around Klay. Thankfully, they didn't call the foul to end the game there, because he was a little too close to Herter, even though it was kind of a Hail Mary shot. But man, that's a rare thing to see, is when they're out and out pointing for Klay to come guard them, because he's been so good in the past. And the lateral quickness is absolutely not there anymore. So
Yeah.
they may need to pair him with, so that he can guard the small forward, or he can guard the small ball four, because when he's guarding the littles, it has not been good. And Cleveland has two really good littles coming at us on Friday.
I was about to say, I'm wondering if, you do Wiggins on Mitchell and Steph on Garland and then Klay on LeVert. Like, we've seen them try to, like, essentially hide Steph in the past, where you put Steph on, like, the worst player 1 through 3. And now we really might see Klay not guard either of the two, because, Klay is not really, like you said, the lateral quickness. He can't guard, like, the Jaws. No one can really guard the Jaws, but, the really quick small guards. Darius Garland's one of the quickest guards in the league. De'Aaron Fox, another one. And, Donovan's kind of right there with them. So
yep.
They really might start Klay on Karis LeVert, or whoever starts at the 3 for Cleveland this upcoming game. And Steph will have to be on Garland.
And Garland against the Kings was really bad, but I guess he was sick. They said he's sick. I don't. Maybe he'll be better.
Yeah,
but he was playing very well. Now on the flip side, those littles on the Cavs, they don't guard anybody either.
Nope.
So the Warriors what the Kings did was they were able to spread the floor, and they're just finding shooters, and that's what the Warriors do, right?
Yep.
And that's why I think it's a necessity that Klay does not force shots or become the black hole, and they keep moving, because they're going to get an open shot against that team. That team has two littles, and they play two bigs in almost every lineup. And so, from a defensive standpoint, the Warriors are going to find opportunities for shots. Like Evan Mobley and
Jared
Allen together against the Warriors is kind of silly, because the Warriors don't really have a post player. Wiggins is kind of the de facto post player, in that he gets inside and he'll do little, he'll finger roll, or he'll fade away from the middle of the paint there. But other than that, like, Draymond gets all of his shots on drives or fast breaks, essentially. Looney is going to kick the ball out at every opportunity, unless it's a wide open layup. So they need to take advantage of that. And then when they bring in Kevin Love, it's like even worse. It's like, okay, like let's just run everybody, at Kevin Love. So It's I think the strategic part of Friday's game is going to be so interesting because of matchups, and I'm interested to see it. But look, the Cavs have the athleticism and they have the speed, and they could, it could be one of those where the Warriors make a few mistakes here and there, and it's boom, 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 and Donovan Mitchell bucket,
Yeah.
Garland bucket, Levert bucket. So the Warriors do have to play a really smart game, and that's going to be a kind of a fun to see thing, because in the past, like last year, even with this Donovan Mitchell team, maybe I think the Warriors would probably win at home and they'll hold
Mhm.
court and they would be fine. But I'm not sure about this year. That's what makes this game so intriguing.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at that team, and I mean that what that team's built off of is essentially what the Warriors have been able to stop their entire tenure of the core three. They have a bigger lineup with the two small guards, two bigs, and the Warriors, basically brought in the idea of small ball, which could run those type of units off the floor. But I mean, you look at Orlando, and that didn't really happen there. And I said the Pelicans are a better version of Orlando. The Cavs are like a 5 times better version than Orlando. What Orlando, the Orlando played a lot of drop coverage, so Klay and Steph were able to get their buckets, and I kind of expect that to happen again unless they run some kind of zone. But Mobley will probably contest a little bit because he's getting better on the perimeter, but Jarrett's fallen back, and so I'm wondering if they can capitalize on that. I noticed that. Did you? I mean, they got a lot of their points off of three. The Kings versus Cavs game from last night. I only got to catch the first quarter, and I feel like they were able to establish the drive, or they were able to drive because they had established the three. But they were kind of able to fool Mobley and Allen a lot by like making close quarter passes inside of like the key, and like confusing them there, and getting looks. I mean, De'Aaron's super fast, can get to the bucket no problem. Sabonis is just going to try to pump fake you to death. But I noticed that they were getting like I don't know, between Sabonis and the other four, they were just like kind of passing it and kept running. I don't know how that's going to work, but I mean, the Warriors are a smart team, and any other year I would probably favor them quite easily. But this year, after the teams that they've lost to on the road, and after how hard it was to get a win against the Sacramento Kings, it's I have to see it now. They almost have a championship team has to prove it to me 9 games in.
Okay, this was a game where pretty much no defense was played. The Kings shot 52.6%. The Cavs shot 53.5%. Both teams shot over 42% from three. Both teams shot over 85% from the free throw line. The difference in the game is just style of play because of their lineups. The Cavs, they ate up, about 65-70% of the rebounds in the entire game. They out rebounded the Kings 42-24, out rebounded them on the offensive boards 12-2. And on the flip side, the Kings, they were working the ball around, finding open shooters. So they had 6 more assists than the Cavs did. So they also took care of the ball. And I think that's the other thing is the Warriors. I don't know where they sit this year when it comes to turnovers, but they need to take care of the basketball. They need to value the possessions against a team like this, because like I said, with Mitchell and Garland, those guys can get out and they could start runs, and before you know what hits you, you're behind. So I think the Warriors are a little bit like the Kings as far as the lineups are concerned, as far as the style that they play. Sabonis is the big player for the Kings, but and the Warriors don't have a 4 or 5 who plays like him. But the style of play is take the open three, get up and down.
Yeah.
Your guard, De'Aaron Fox, is your lead guy, and he's going to kind of run the show. And Steph same way. So they play similarly enough to where I think the Warriors were watching that tape last night, and I don't think they expect the Cavs to mail it in so poorly on defense, because Mobley was really a non-factor in the game, and it wasn't because he wasn't doing his job. It was just that game was so up and down, so it sort of took his effectiveness away in a sense, because, you know, he wasn't there to contest shots, and he wasn't there to, you know, get lobs thrown to and crush them. And, you know, he didn't really have to go out. There wasn't a lot of one-on-one. It was a lot of just open shot, open shot, open shot. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the Warriors can, if they play like that and they take advantage of that. Cleveland is the perimeter defense has looked really bad last night, so
Mm-hmm.
that'll be interesting. And I want to see how Cleveland kind of reacts to losing 2 in a row on the road,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of a thing for a young team where they have to figure that out, and that's why I I want to see how they react. I want to see how the Warriors react, because they're supposed to be the veteran team to be able to stabilize. So it's a really good strategic matchup. But before I forget, Jordan Poole, when we did the what do we expect from Jordan Poole segment, which is one of our top YouTube segments that I pulled. Wiseman, talking about Wiseman and talking about Jordan Poole are popular YouTube segments for us. And if you want to check out YouTube, BSPN on YouTube. So Jordan Poole, we said defensively, he's got to show up. I think he's worse than he was last year. This is the Jordan Poole. If anybody wants to go play basketball, and I'll explain this to those listening to audio, this is the Jordan Poole. This is what he does in play. He gets beat and he puts his hands up as if to say, that wasn't my fault, or I don't know what happened, or what, while the play is going on. Like, these guys are actively going at him. And he is so frustrated, and I'm not making fun of him. It's just his reaction is so visual on the screen. He's letting you know when he gets cooked just by the way he reacts. And you know, they're picking on him. Like, they're running big dudes running screens at this poor guy. Like, he gets knocked off balance so much. And some of it is, you know, he's just a skinnier guy, and he'll get bigger. Like, you look at Steph now compared to, you know, 6 or 7 years ago, different body, and Jordan will do that too. But they're targeting him, and it's almost like you know, we saw you last year, and we're giving you the respect, and that, you know, we got a lot of tape on you both offensively and defensively. And here's what we're going to do: we're going to tire you out. We're going to make you work, and thus on offense you aren't as effective because you're just getting your butt kicked on defense. And so that's what I see. But what do you see when you're watching him? Because obviously he's not the same guy as he was last year.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I expected him to just get beat off the dribble all the time. Maybe, you know, that if I'm opposing teams, that's what my game plan would be, if, like, just go at Jordan Poole. But what I've noticed more is just like the lack of IQ on, like, help defensive plays when someone gets by their guy and Jordan Poole decides to be the help guy when it really should be the big, and then he leaves his wide open guy wide open to shoot a three. That's what, you know, and that's what I've said before on this podcast, which is Draymond would yell at him for that in the past. And Draymond not doing that anymore, or not feeling comfortable to do that anymore. Not really doing that with many of his teammates, which is kind of annoying. We didn't talk about this, but I think during, like, the Pistons, we might have actually talked about this. The Pistons game, or it was the Charlotte game, one of those games where he was just getting visibly frustrated with Klay, kind of putting his hands up, but like, but it's not when Klay would mess up on defense, but
Yeah.
he's not yelling at anyone. He's kind of just getting mad, as if to say, like, if only I could, like, yell at these guys right now or something. Like, he's not really being a leader, in my opinion, on that side of the floor. And that could be because, you know, he wants to, you know, the quote where he's going to slowly earn back their trust. He doesn't want to, you know, try to be the yelling animated Draymond right from the get go, but the Warriors need that guy.
Yeah.
So yeah,
can he become that again?
I don't know. It's good. I guess more time is needed,
because, like, who makes like, I mean, this is a bad thing to say. You don't, Draymond is, you know, he made a mistake, and, you know, hopefully there's some forgiveness there, but who allows him to just be like, okay, Draymond, we need Draymond again. Like, we need you to be the Draymond of old. Like, can he do it, or does someone give him the okay? Does Jordan go, hey dude, I forgive you. Like, let's go. Like, or is it just he can't do it anymore? Like, that's the part that's hard to figure out for me.
Another 5 or 7 game stretch of Jordan Poole looking like ass. I feel like the whole fan base will force him to do it, to get on his knees and say, "Please, Draymond, start yelling at us again."
Is there a lineup that fits Jordan Poole better than what they're doing though right now? Is the other question, because when he's the lead guy, he seems to be forcing it a little too much, as if to say, I need to prove this contract. And I see him breakdancing way too much. Like, this guy is holding onto the ball and he's doing all of these moves and not progressing the action. And you just see guys standing around, like the offense shuts down rather than him, because the difference is when you watch him and Steph doesn't even really initiate the action sometimes, but Steph is just moving. Steph's just running around the court because he's trying to get open shots. Jordan is more so trying to get the ball in space so that he can make a move and go, but they're guarding that space a lot better this year. And so what he's doing is he's pulling it back out. He's trying to go again, pulling it back out, trying to do a move to get, and it's just, by then it's like, okay, 5 seconds later, guy, like it's now 5 seconds left on the shot clock and here comes a force. I wonder if obviously more playing with Steph will help, but he can't always play with Steph if he's the sixth man. More playing with Draymond, I feel like, will help too, because Draymond can do a lot of the stuff that he does with Steph, with setting the ball screens and just as creative as Draymond is, getting Jordan Poole the ball where he needs it to be. I don't know, when he's playing with Moody and Kuminga and Wiseman all at the same time, maybe DiVincenzo does help because they'll play together in the backcourt. It just seems like he feels like this is all on me. I got to get a bucket, and if I don't, we're not scoring.
I mean, I always relate this to baseball a lot because I feel like I don't know baseball as much, but at the same time, I've been able to see year to year how players' impacts either go up or down. And I feel like Tyler Rogers, that's his name, right? The reliever for the Giants, the sidearm guy. He had a great year last year, but I genuinely feel like when teams have a full season of tape to look at what he does and be like, okay, after the fastball, he'll throw a sinker or stuff like that and game plan against him, then you could see it in this year's results where it seemed like people knew what he was going to do this year and his numbers go down. I'm not going to say that Poole's numbers are going to go down just yet, but teams now game plan against him. Whereas last year, in the games that Steph and Dre and Klay didn't play because of, back-to-back on a road away games, and Poole had to be the main focus, like there were some doubles that were thrown at him. And he was able to react well against it, but it wasn't like a couple practices before the coach is like, okay, we need to really zone in on Jordan Poole. It was probably like a halftime or a timeout adjustment to be like, oh wow, this dude's cooking us right now. Let's go put some pressure on him. But I feel like a way to solve it is to put players on the court with him that will make defenses pay for sending doubles at him, whether it's Moody being able to hit a catch and shoot shot, whether it's DiVincenzo, whether it's Draymond cutting at the right time, or JaMychal Green, like put those guys around Poole. And so when the double comes, pass it to the open guy that they doubled off of and then make them pay. And then they'll have to sag off and then Poole can start doing his dancing again or whatever, how he used to. But I mean, they said it in plus minus too, but there is a point where he has to adjust and attack and show why they paid him that amount of money, because that amount of money means that you should be able to succeed regardless of the defense that's thrown at you, essentially. So I think that, yeah, he does just have to learn how to, and dribbling, the amount of times he's dribbling in those situations isn't the solution. There are different solutions. He just needs to find it.
I think if his outside shot starts falling, which some of that is taking better shots, taking open shots, I think that will help him, because then the defense can't be so up in his grill. But he's also got to start making it. Like, a lot of this is on him. Some of it is obviously mental. He's been dealing with a lot. Like that punch, I think a lot of people kind of just brushed it aside, but there's a trust thing that's involved there, and that's it's a young man, right? Jordan Poole is not a 30-year-old person who has
with kids and a wife.
right. And he's still a very young man. He's still a young man. He's successful. That came pretty quickly after the failure was the thing with him. So I'm not giving up on him in any way. I just want to see. This is the same thing we were talking about in the playoffs, and it's a very simplistic way of saying it. I get it. Toughness. I just want to see toughness. Like if he gets blown by and he doesn't give up on the play, and then Looney comes out and puts his hands up, and that stops the guy, and then Jordan comes and helps, and then gets a weak side steal. Like that's part of it, right? But he gets beat and he gives up, and then like you said, then he's late on a shooter because he's trying to respond to that. So, okay. Other thing, I guess the other thing that I was interested in your thoughts on. At what point do you get a little nervous about this season going backward? How many games into the season where the Warriors aren't yet at 500? And I said this, I think I said this on the last show. I said after that Pelicans game, they were going to win the next 4 or whatever and get back to 500. If they beat Cleveland, I think they have a good shot. If they lose to Cleveland, then of course I'm wrong. But is it 15 games, which is only 5 games from now? Is it 20 games? Is it 30 games? Because you get closer to the All-Star break and it's like, okay, now we're positioning for the playoffs. And if the Warriors are less than 500 around that time, then you're like, uh-oh, what's going on here? We're talking play-in game.
Yeah, I mean, I think context is important here, whereas I think the record is going to be, I mean, extremely important. It's more like, how are they playing? How are they looking? Are the units starting to mesh? Is Kuminga and Moody starting to become, more staples in the rotation, and their play is backing that up? Or is it like the same old? If it's the same old, if we're having this conversation of, the Warriors not winning a road game, barely beating the Kings in like 2 weeks, I mean, that's awful. You're gonna have to start making some major decisions. And I don't even know where you start with this team, because it felt like, oh, the Warriors are the smart guys. They have this all figured out, the 2 timelines. And do you really blow up the entire 2 timelines and just try to bring in another like big star to help the now guys win another championship?
I mean, just from a monetary perspective, I don't know if they could bring in a big star. Like,
I mean, yeah, they'd have to pair it with, Wiggs.
Yeah, it'd have to be Wiggins or Poole.
It can't
actually, it can't be Poole because Poole's not until next year.
Yeah, it doesn't even make.
It'd have to be Wiggins or Draymond, and I don't think you want to do Draymond. And no one's taking Klay at this point.
No.
Okay, so the reason why I said that, and I'm thinking, I think if we get to the 30 game time frame and they are under 500, I'll be pretty worried. Because then after, then you sort of are what you are. They could still make a run. We remember last year they were like 18-2, and then they hit like a slide, and they were like a 500 team essentially for the rest of the year. So they could still make a run. But let's say you don't blow up the timeline. But let's say you realize that you do need another piece. Tim Kawakami, and this is where I was where I was mentioning to Mark, Tim Kawakami on Plus Minus said, Wiseman for GP2.
Straight up.
And on the surface, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Because we are looking at Wiseman as still a guy, right? As still talent, as still somebody who has value. And Tim was saying, for this team, for the Warriors, they can't look at it that way anymore, because they are just in search of players who can help the team right now because of the one timeline that we're talking about. I have another player in mind as well, but interested in who out of Poole, Kuminga, Wiseman, Moody, who would you dangle out there first if you needed to?
I think that Wiseman probably has the lowest trade value out of all 4 of them right now. So you'd not only be getting, pennies to the dollar, you'd be getting lower than that. I feel like GMs would try to sneak him from you really low. Like I feel like a lot of GMs in the NBA think that they can unlock his potential, but at the same time, they're like, look, this kid's awful right now. Like we're not trading you player X who's, been well for us for this guy who's, on a contract year, or is he next year or next year he's eligible for an extension? Like
Wiseman.
yeah, Wiseman.
They already picked it up. It's $12 million next year.
Okay. So yeah, no, I feel like Wiseman's the obvious candidate, but at the same time, you're not really getting anything good in return, especially looking at his money. If you're not pairing him with Wiggins, or not pairing him with someone who makes the money, because we know the Warriors' salary, that what that's looking like right now. You can't bring in a guy who makes more money than Wiseman, or else you're paying $7 to the dollar. So not only are you selling low on Wiseman, you're bringing back a guy who, and if you're trading Wiseman, you're not trading him for another young player, right? You're not trading Wiseman for Jabari Smith Jr. Like you're trading Wiseman for probably multiple vets on vet minimum contracts. And that's just awful. Like that is just putting in the white flag and saying we drafted bad. And I don't think they do the GP2 one either, because that's like there's got to be like a pride thing there, right? Like we decided not to pay GP2 because we bet on our young guys to do it. And not only is that not working, now we're giving you our second number 2 pick for a guy we literally just had and had the option to bring back. Like there's too much pride in that for them to ever think of doing that.
Except the way that they could look at it like that is they would say the reason we couldn't sign GP2 was because of Wiseman, right? Like you're like, because of Wiseman's contract, that is what disallowed us to be able to sign GP2. So I was looking up what GP2's contract even was. He signed a 3-year deal for $26 million. So it's 8 this year, 8-7 next year, 9-1 the third year. And
isn't Wiseman making like 10 this year?
So I think Wiseman is at 9, but let's look it up. Wiseman's contract for this year is, come on, Spot Track, what's going on here? I don't know why he just decided to be so slow right now. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe the website is down. And I just looked at it for GP2, so funky Spot Track here. Oh no, there we go. So Wiseman is at, this year he is at 9.6. So 9.6, then it'll be 12, and if they pick it up the following year again, then it'll be at 15. So this year Wiseman is not super affordable, but it's not as easy next year, I think, if you want to deal him, and he's sort of the same guy this year. So I get that perspective. Here's a guy that I was wondering, and I don't even know if this necessarily works. Now let me say this first. If the Spurs or the Thunder, I'm trying to think of what are the smart teams, the Jazz, if those teams come sniffing around Wiseman, I'd be like, maybe we should keep him, because those are smart teams.
Yeah.
And if it was, some of these other teams that may not be quite as smart, then that may tell you different. But if
Ainge would swindle us too. He would swindle us.
Yeah, it's like, we got all of the best games out of Lauri Markkanen, and here you can have him.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another trade that I thought about, and I was interested in what you thought of. Okay, let's say they have to be giving up on Wiseman at this point, right? It's like, nope, we need to get rid of him. We need to find a piece that's going to help us win now. What about Malik Monk? GP2 or Malik Monk?
I don't want Malik. I feel like he doesn't fit.
He is small, like GP. He's 6'3". They're both 6'3". Obviously, GP is a much better defender.
Malik can't defend.
Malik is so quick. Yeah. And in the Warriors offense, playing next to Steph and Klay and Jordan Poole, in some instance, he would get so many open shots. And he is a really good shooter. He's only shooting about 38% from 3 right now, but in that Warriors system,
it's probably like the best 3-point percentage on the Warriors besides Steph right now.
But I feel like he's a guy that you think of as like, oh, he should be upper echelon. Like he should win the 3-point contest kind of shooter. But he's athletic, right? Like he can go to the rim. He can dunk on somebody if need be. The ill fit is defensively. Him and Jordan Poole together would be really terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think they need more of like a, or you want to finish that?
No. Just I
I
was done.
think that Malik Monk, him being a little, smaller, so you'd put him in that little guard, with DiVincenzo, with Poole, with Moody, with Klay, with Steph. Like that's just too many. Like we're worrying about Moody getting DMPs and not fitting into the rotation because of positional depth, and I think Malik Monk would complicate that. I think you need like like a 3 times, 5 times better Anthony Lamb. And you should be able to get that with a Wiseman package. But I mean, you look at Malik Monk's contract. I feel like them trading Wiseman straight up for Malik Monk is the ultimate white flag.
Even worse than GP.
GP at least fits. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't. I like
agree.
Malik's the scorer. Obviously the goal is to score the ball in the basket. But like when it comes to April and May, like Malik becomes a little less valuable in my opinion when you have him and Poole out there, and then it's just like, oh, the defense are like, or the opposing teams are like, oh, sweet, which one should we go at? Doesn't really matter. Let's just have fun.
Somebody like Miles Turner, they would have to move 2 contracts.
They'd have to move like him and Loon.
Yeah, they can't move Looney. Looney's like he's literally by plus minus, he's the most valuable player in the Warriors right now.
I mean, maybe you could do Wiseman and DiVincenzo, but
yeah, that probably would work.
Yeah, I was eyeing the Pacers too because I mean, if we want to go into the Wiseman discussion, I know you had it as a topic, but like Wiseman really would benefit from being able to, I've mentioned it multiple times on multiple podcasts actually, where it's like there are guys who, need different development plans to hit their potential, whether it's, a LaMelo Ball just needing to get the keys to his team immediately so he can just hit all the bumps and bruises early, learn through it and become a star, or it's a Moses Moody who might actually do well playing under a system and reaching his potential by, slowly just making his way up the ranks. Wiseman's on that LaMelo train. He needed the keys to an offense. And what's interesting about the situation with him and Poole is that Poole kind of had that ability to go through the bumps and bruises because that was the throwaway year to get James Wiseman. Well, Wiseman comes in and it's kind of like, okay, well, we need to win and we need you to be this person or this player now. And then he gets hurt and then he comes back and it's like, okay, we don't need you to be that guy, but we need you to be this guy now. And he still can't do that. Like he really would benefit going to a Utah, going to a San Antonio, or going to an Indiana, going to a Houston. I mean, Houston's got their guy at center right now, but that's gonna suck when if it does happen where the Warriors will make a trade and send him to one of those places. That's gonna suck watching him hit his potential. Because you can't look at him at the same light as you do Anthony Edwards and LaMelo anymore. No way. You look at him in that second or third tier of guys in that class, whether it's Sadiq Bays, or Halliburton. Halliburton's in that first echelon too. Same with probably Tyrese Maxey too in that first one. But you start looking at him in the Isaiah Stewart spotlight. So I think that it will suck, and I'm gonna hold the "I told you so" key in my pocket when that happens.
So I don't think it would fit. I don't think DiVincenzo and Wiseman for a Miles Turner would fit. The Warriors would actually have to pay. They'd be it'd be $2 million more about to bring Miles Turner in.
Well, quick question though. Do you think that before we go into these more mock trades, do you think that the Warriors would prefer, if they traded Wiseman, do you think they'd prefer having someone who's under contract for more than just 1 year, or do you think they'd rather have an unrestricted free agent like Miles Turner who comes off the books after this year?
Well, you would have
contract for 2 or 3.
Yeah, you would have to figure out how to sign him, right? Like you would, and it's not like you can add. I mean, you could add JaMychal Green, but then you're paying 3 players for 1 player to make the money work because JaMychal Green and DiVincenzo are making such little money as trade pieces. They don't even help you when you're trying to add salaries together. All right. So last thing before we get out of here is I was interested in your thoughts on the jersey, the new jersey that came out. When I first saw the yellow, I didn't really understand what it was, and I'm not sure it even looks that great as far as what it's supposed to be, this rose. The story behind this jersey, and if you haven't heard it, the Warriors have a new city jersey. It is black and it is yellow with a rose to it is showing female empowerment. I forget the woman's name who designed it, but it's kind of an interesting design. Like I just don't know about that yellow rose, because when you tuck the jersey in, it looks like you have like some Cheeto dust on your uniform, like coming above. Like, I love the story. I think the story is really cool. I'm just not sure I like the fit, like the look of that jersey. What did you think?
I think every player should size up in the jersey so that when they tuck it in, it's longer, so that you just won't see any of that. But I mean, yeah, I know Zach Lowe put out a story about the jersey, and I've kind of heard bits and pieces. I think it's cool. I think, the idea of it and who made it, like, that's all cool. That's all fun. I'm not like too pressed about what my team wears. I'm more pressed about if they're winning or not. But I wouldn't buy that jersey. And I think it's more because of that stuff on the bottom that I wouldn't buy it. It kind of looks like some other brands are doing this, like, more jerseys where it's kind of stuff all around where instead of just like the team logo and the name. But I don't know. Art's crazy sometimes. Art makes no sense to me because when teams start to really explain like those little marks on the jerseys, like those little lines around the rows on the top, it's supposed to explain women's suffrage and how they've suffered. It's like, to me, those look like lines.
Yeah.
Art's crazy sommes, but I like the idea.
What about the Charlotte CLT?
Oh my God, yeah, that it's reminiscent of the Cream City from the Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, I think there will be some people selling them, and really, they should market them to women and explain what that means, and I think it's a really smart thing. But I'm not sure if the Warriors fan who wants to get a new jersey every year, I'm not sure that's the one that they pick. But
I mean, that's probably why they would package this type of jersey with the reminiscent of TMC, so in case that does happen.
Yeah. All right, call it Cleveland.
Didn't we already call this in the last podcast? I probably said loss, but you might have convinced me into a win.
I mean, I said win, but now that we've seen the Pelicans game, we've seen the Kings game. Does that change your mind? It's home. We've seen now Cleveland's lost 2 in a row on the road. They just lost to Sacramento. Call the Warriors Cavs here.
I'm going to be a downer. I think because, I think the Warriors had to smack Sacramento for me to feel a little bit better about calling this game. But it took a Steph game to like go absolutely berserk to even barely win that one with a Klay missed call foul 3. And Cleveland's coming off of a amazing start, where like a second best start in the NBA, and they've lost 2 straight.
Who did the Bucks lose to, by the way? Because I know they only got one loss. Oh, was it Atlanta? Wow,
they lost to Atlanta. Yeah, Atlanta's kind of on a run right now too. But yeah, I'm gonna say the Cavs, and I think that Steph's gonna have a great game like he did against Orlando, like he did against Sacramento. But have you seen anything in the rotation to give you any good feelings? We have seen nothing. So until, again, like they got to show me before I could start making better predictions. Because if we're gonna see another, I don't know if DiVincenzo's playing, so just another Jerome and
I think he's supposed to be there, but they haven't made it official yet.
And I mean, knowing how the Warriors ease players back in from injury, like how many minutes is he realistically getting? So, and yeah, I got to see how they really utilize the lineup, because how Steve Kerr said, "Oh, changes are coming in the lineup," and we all thought, "Oh, big Kuminga minutes," and then, "Oh, no Kuminga minutes in the second half." It's like I just got to see it.
I'm saying Warriors win. Steph goes for 50.
That's realistic. If they play drop coverage and the guards are bad at defense, it's totally realistic. I think that could happen and they still lose.
Steph's not going to let them lose, I don't think. He's going to get mad. He's gonna
yell we need a 2020, 2021 Steph where he's just like yelling at the bench, where it seems more directed at James Wiseman and Kelly Oubre. Like, we need him to get frustrated like that again.
All right. We'll be back next week to talk about how the season is going, and I think I read this last time, but we'll just break down just quickly. I'll just give you the other games after Friday. So it's Friday against Cavs, then the Warriors go to Sacramento on Sunday. Sacramento will see if they get a little bit of revenge. The Warriors should be happy to see the Spurs on Monday, right? Like the Spurs are 5-5 team,
They've
but
settled down.
yeah. So, and then the big one, the Suns
Ugh.
on Wednesday. So if the Warriors were able to win the next 3 games, I think they're back at 500, right? They'd be 7-7.
Mhm.
And then the Suns, they owe the Suns, man. The Suns spanked them last time.
Oh yeah,
That
and the
was a
Suns
big,
are down Cam Johnson now too.
yeah, that was a big spanking. You know, I wish Ayton and Wiseman were friends, and Ayton could just go, "Come on, man, this is
Teach
what
me.
I did. This is all you need to do. It's not that hard. You just need to catch the basketball. You just need to be open for lobs. You need to get excited for those moments. And just use your athleticism. Like that's what I do. All right, we'll be back next week. So for Bri, I am Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.